My parents actually met on the island of Manhattan, and my dad was hoping to have a son, but he had 4 women instead. And that turned out to be a marvelous thing because there was no competition. No boy to outshine us. And in the Latin culture, that's a serious thing, as you may or may not know. And I was also aware that there was a perception that Latinos were mostly in service roles. The way we get depicted on TV, for example, is not very flattering. So there are stereotypes and preconceived notions about what we're capable of doing. But I was very fortunate. I met these lovely men who had a startup, and they didn't seem to share that prejudice or the bias. And I joined them, and we were, at the time, maybe 30 people. But by the time I left, we were 1,000, and we were international and very successful. So I feel very blessed. So as I think about the greatest challenge to creating a diverse workforce, it was simply that the people in the company were going to the same places that they had attended, the schools they had attended. And because their world and network was mostly Caucasian, the programming division was entirely white and male. If you keep recruiting from the same place, obviously you're going to get the same result. What I did note is that we didn't look anything like New York. New York is extremely diverse. And so what I did about that was to engage a young man in the programming division who's the son of a professor. And I said to him, what if we go to different schools? What if I hire the cream of the crop from schools we're not used to going to? And then you can train them. It can be an internship. And in 6 months, if they don't cut it, they're gone. But if they cut it, they've got a job. And what happened was that organically, we started hiring women, people of color, et cetera. And it got to the point where they didn't really notice what was happening, but instead realizing that these folks were also talented. So I think doing it organically is much more pleasant than saying, you've got to hit this number. The results were spectacular. By the time, so I was there a long time, and by the time I left that organization 20 years later, it was entirely diverse. There were Asians, Latinos, African Americans, maybe half of that division was now female, which was entirely different and new. So, and I think everyone really felt good about it. And so I think it was fun. So I think the result was that people felt good about having difference, and that difference made us more interesting. And I definitely believe more successful. The idea that we have to try different universities as an experiment ended up being a good thing because they realized that talent exists in places that were unexpected. HBCUs, historically Black colleges, or colleges where there were more Latinos, et cetera. So we partnered, the HR person would partner with the programmer and would go to these schools, and they found it both interesting and stimulating that indeed there were people who were diverse who could do the work. I made sure that my HR division was also diverse because you don't want to be hypocritical. And then we started doing the same thing in the other areas, like the client service division, the administrative area, the people that work in the computer room. So it's got to be everybody. But I started with programming because that was the most important thing in that company. And I think you have to start by the people who are highest on the food chain. So when you see that example, it trickles down. We also started looking for headhunters that also had the same goal and that understood that we were not looking for them to just get us same old, that we wanted them to be more creative. I also made it a requirement that if somebody was working on a job for me, at least 50% of the candidates they present have to be people of color. I think maybe I should have spent more time talking to the division heads as we were making these changes to have them reflect with me that they were part of the success and how it made them feel. And if it didn't make them feel in any particular way, to credit them for the contribution for making us a better company and better people. I think that reflection, because I'm organically disposed to be reflective, but the department heads doing other work like accounting and programming and all those other things, that may not be their natural instinct. And I think it's important to get them to feel the goodness of what we've done. This experience that I was describing, we did not have the same technological tools that exist today. LinkedIn has been a go-to recruitment tool. That has changed that. And that's good and bad, because you see the faces, and sometimes that can lead you to make preconceived judgments about that person simply because of your past experience. But the online recruiting tools, I would say, are not necessarily as nuanced as perhaps we would like. And sometimes they screen out people that you should talk to, because if it doesn't have the right word, and some people use different words for the same thing, and the algorithm doesn't match that. So sometimes technology can work against you. You might miss some really good people because they didn't use the right words, and that's a shame. I realize that today there are solutions to the limitations with other tools that allow you to see the person's name, that allow you to see the person's face, and that perhaps are looking specifically for only certain words. So I'm excited about Talenya. Haven't had a chance to use it extensively, but what excites me about the tool is that it's not as precise in terms of only that particular word, and it allows for different variations of the same thing. I think that is a whole game changer, because for people intergenerationally who use different words, an older person may say data processing, a younger person might never say data processing, but it doesn't mean that person isn't qualified to do the job. And I could think of comparisons in almost every field where that might be the case. So I think it's really important for recruiters and hiring managers who really care about not screening out good qualified candidates to seek out other solutions. And Talenya sounds like it could be very interesting and a real game changer in that regard if we really want equity.